The First World War was a global conflict. History books tell us that it was a conflict between white men in Europe. But I want to tell you the untold story of how black men were treated when all they wanted to do was fight for their king.
When I was studying about the war, I'd be like, wow, people like me were actually like here fighting for their lives and stuff. And it just, even like with white people as well, if they've seen those images, they'll maybe have a different perspective on black people and like just people that are not the same color as them.
This is the story of a forgotten regiment who gave up their lives to serve our country. The old history you don't learn in school. When the First World War broke out, people across the empire felt a patriotic duty to fight, but the War Office didn't want them. The War Office questioned the quality and ability of West Indian men to fight. What this really meant was the government were worried about damaging decades of white racial prestige. While rejecting black men, they sought to actively enlist white men from the empire. Nonetheless, more black men came to fight. Something had to be done. In 1915, it became such a big issue, even King George V had to intervene. The War Office finally agreed to the creation of a specific regiment for West Indians. On the 3rd of November 1915, the British West Indies Regiment was established, and a recruitment drive in the West Indies began. Posters adorned the street of the West Indies, calling on men of all colour, creed and class to come forward to fight. I really wanted you to call these two and tell me what you think, because one is addressed to Australians and the other one is the Bahamas. What difference do you see?
You look at the language, the fact that it's saying help us. So it gives me that sense, it gives me that feeling that I'm empowered as well, like I'm helping somebody, I'm contributing.
It feels more aspirational. Like, will you help us keep that promise? It's more like, we need you, but not like we need you because we just need you and we're losing and we need more people, but we need you because we want you.
What's the matter with you? That's what stands out to me. I think, how dare you? You're asking me to come and put down my life for you, and you're asking me what's wrong with me?
It's almost like, why aren't you already fighting for your country? You should have already been fighting for your country.
It was considered to be too dangerous to have black men fighting alongside white men, so instead they were given labour duties. Many British Indian troops would end up undertaking laborious jobs such as digging trenches, building roads and working in ammunition dumps. They also received lower pay and were prevented from holding any position higher than a sergeant. To keep them out of Europe, many were deployed in Egypt and the Middle East. Their roles were still highly dangerous. Work was within range of the enemy. Men were killed. By the end of the war, 15,204 black men, representing British Guyana and all the Caribbean colonies, had served in the British West Indian Regiment. 185 of these men were killed in action. 1,071 died from sickness and disease, and 697 were wounded.
It looks like, oh, it sounds awful. It looks like a normal history picture, not an alternative one.
It's also an example to and educational for white people and for white children who have grown up thinking that these are just immigrants alongside them, not knowing that some of these immigrants' grandparents may have fought to protect their motherland, their home country as well. So it's important for everyone.
When peace was declared, the army did not know what to do with these so-called second-class soldiers. They rounded the West Indian soldiers up near the city of Taranto in Italy. While the white soldiers were celebrating victory, the black soldiers were ordered to do the laundry and clean the latrines. When the rest of the army got a pay rise, the black soldiers did not. They felt mistreated and humiliated. Outraged, they mutinied. The mutiny lasted around 4 days. They refused to work and violence broke out. The War Office was unsympathetic to their demands. They dispatched a machine gun corps to deal with the troublemakers. The ringleaders were rounded up and 60 soldiers were tried for mutiny.
It's just such a horrible reaction to people that have put their life on the line for their country. To then be treated like that, it's beyond me.
Some were sent to prison up to 21 years, and one was even executed by firing squad. Then, the West Indies Regiment was disbanded. They were hoping to fight shoulder to shoulder with their fellow countrymen. They had given their lives for their king, and they expected more from the mother country. And yet, that was not the case. They were met with prejudice and discrimination. Black soldiers who had fought during the war were treated as second-class citizens. Their experiences of oppression and warfare were etched in their memories, and yet they were written out of British history. And their history should be remembered when we talk about the First World War.
We've been here fighting, we've been part of the British history, not just black history, not black British history, but British history as a whole. This is something that includes all of us, regardless of whether we're from the Caribbean or Africa. Black history is British history.